Hey there, and welcome to the Family Movie Night podcast. My name is Caroline Morris. I am here joined by my husband, Tim Morris. We are just movie-loving people who want to bring you a resource as parents to help you, gain some wisdom, hear what else is out there movie-wise, and just to allow you to make good decisions on what you're allowing your kids to watch at home or in the theater or at a friend's house or streaming. We are here to go before you and to give you all the nitty-gritty details about the language, the violence, the relationship issues in these movies, and maybe just some hot topics that you might want to talk to your kid about before actually watching a movie with them. So, Tim, why don't you tell people kind of the reason why we're doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, as we all know, between all of the streaming platforms and theaters and all that, there's endless amounts of movies and shows that kids can watch and have access to. And so there's no way that as a parent, you can keep up with every single thing. And so we just had this idea and wanted to be a resource because we love movies in this house. That's a big part of what we do to bond as a family. And even just on a personal note, growing up, Friday nights were family movie nights in my house. And it was one of the most favorite things that we did. Honestly, I work in the film and television industry, and a huge reason as to why I wanted to go down this career path, as funny as it sounds, is because of those family movie nights and just the memories associated with watching a good movie. And so we want, parents and families to have those times together, and we want parents to have the resources to know, hey, is this something that I actually want my kid to watch? And I think it's important to note, Caroline, as we start out on this journey, we don't want to be super biased about this. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to we will have some opinions on things, but this isn't supposed to just be our critical review of a film. We just want to say, hey, here are the things that are in it. This is something you may want to look out for. This may be something you want to have a conversation about, but just something to be aware as a parent so that you guys can make the best decisions for your kids.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, we're not trying to tell you how to parent your kid. We're just kind of here giving you the brief and the skinny on these new and popular, and some not so new, actually. We're going to cover a lot of movies that are a blast from the past that are just personal favorites of ours. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to do this with you. You're my coworker now, so this is kind of fun.
We'll see how this goes. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too.
I think we work well together.
I think so too. No, I do. I do think that. All right, should we get into it? Our very first movie.
Hey, we're coming out of the gate hot.
We are. We're here talking about Wicked, part one.
One of the biggest films, arguably, of 2024.
Yeah, I just heard a stat, actually, this week that said it was the third highest grossing movie of this past year, 2024. So,
and I don't, we didn't look up the actual release date of it, but it was in the back half, Thanksgiving time.
I think it was
It's
November.
not like it was a big summer blockbuster or early in the year, so it did numbers pretty quick.
And as a former choir girl in theater, musical theater girl myself, it did scratch a nice itch for me. So Tim, why don't you give us some facts about this movie? Give us a synopsis.
Absolutely. So obviously this is Wicked Part 1, as we have mentioned. It's a
Part 2 coming
2025.
2025.
Later. Yep. We will get to that when it comes. Stay tuned. Its association rating is PG. This might be a little obvious, but the category is obviously musical, based off of a musical. And we also like to give what audience this movie was intended for, because there might be, as we will discuss in future episodes, movies that seem like they might be for kids, maybe really aren't for kids, or maybe it is a kids movie, but it's an older kids movie or, a younger kids movie. So I think it's important to just kind of know, who was this movie actually made for? And so for me, the way I put it, I said from grade school up, really kind of, a first grader to anybody older than that. And really what I mean by that is it's a movie for all ages, but if you have a 5 or 6 year old, they may not understand everything just because it's not a preschool type of a film.
Well, even from a pure entertainment standpoint, I don't know if they would really be entertained. It is a beautiful movie. Lots of colors, lots of dancing, lots of excitement. But even like our toddler, I think he would only be really
a 4-year-old's not going to understand the storyline of
right.
Wicked.
And our toddler would probably only be entertained when the songs were being sung. So
right.
Yeah.
And so also we just like to give a little synopsis of the film. This is according to Letterboxd, which is a movie app if you have not heard of it before. And it says, when ostracized and misunderstood green-skinned Elphaba is forced to share a room with the popular aristocrat Glinda. The two's unlikely friendship is tested as they begin to fulfill their respective destinies as Glinda the Good and the Wicked Witch of the West. It is directed by John M. Chu as well. I'd like to just shout him out for that. And just another thing, too, if you're not familiar with the storyline of Wicked, it is kind of a prequel to Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. It's a reimagining to the Wizard of Oz story. You may have, gotten that by the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda, but if you don't know, it is a bit of a prequel to that famous tale.
Yeah, so I would say like the association rating for this movie is pretty accurate. Like I think PG is a pretty good rating for this movie. There's no language whatsoever. There's very little substance abuse. It's at or not even abuse, but usage at the beginning of the movie. It does insinuate, there was like a little bit of sexual insinuation at the beginning of the movie. It's talking about Elphaba's mom and that she had an affair, and it does show that, them being physical, but not, I don't know.
It doesn't show the act.
It doesn't show the act, but it's definitely an insinuation.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a musical and dance number, and the dancing is a little sensual.
It is.
There is a little bit of alcohol involved at the very beginning.
And that's very clear. The alcohol part is very clear. That's not an insinuation.
Right. I will say overall, it is pretty subtle.
And it's really only that one time.
Right. It's only at the one time at the beginning, but it is in there. And, depending on the age of your kid, they might pick up on it.
And another thing to notate here is that this is a 3-hour movie. So if you wanted to fast forward through that first scene, it wouldn't be a total loss to the story or to the plot, in my opinion. Also at the beginning of the movie, just kind of in the violence, not really even violence, but just a little bit gory, a little bit grim, a little bit depictive.
Sure.
Is that a word?
It is now.
Okay. Is that it does portray the birth scene that when Elphaba is born, and obviously it's not showing details, but it is insinuating a lot there, and the mother is pushing and is in pain. So that's something to notate there. It's not graphic, but it is there, and might cause some questions for some little ones. I would say another part is just kind of in this initial, it's not even the opening scene, but it's kind of that initial part at the beginning of Elphaba's story is that Elphaba is rejected by her parents, mostly her dad. So that, that's hard to watch sometimes for a child, especially when it's showing a small child being unloved and being rejected by their parents. So that's something to notate there as well.
I mean, that's kind of the whole main plot of the film is that Elphaba, she's born green and therefore has been treated differently her entire life by her own parents, as Caroline said, her father, by the other kids around her. And that's just as a continuing theme throughout the film. And so that can bring up, some really good conversation about real world implications and examples as to people being treated differently because of their differences, whether that be skin color or otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so definitely a big part of the film that can lead to greater conversation if kids have not fully been exposed to something like that before. Yeah,
and there is some bullying, that happens at school, and so a lot of that is just good conversations to notate and to have maybe on how your kid can handle that when they see that at school.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the violence and gore section. What were some of the things you found that may fall into violence and or gore?
I'll tell you one of the things. And I think it was the initial scene. So the movie kind of starts off with almost like picking up at the end of Wizard of Oz, which is whenever the people of Oz find out that the Wicked Witch of the West has been killed. And so a lot of it is celebrating, and they're celebrating a death. So that is one thing I think to notate, even if it is of a bad person. The perception of a bad person. It's good to notate that they're celebrating death at the beginning. Another thing that I definitely, my ears perked up at, and was whenever they brought out this like really big statue kind of thing made of straw of the Wicked Witch of the West. And it was, obviously not a real person. It was a depiction of this person, but they lit her on fire. So I thought that was a bit, I would put that in the violence and gore category. But yeah, and so that was all part of the celebration of the death of the Wicked Witch of the West. What about you? What did you have?
There are a few depictions of violence against animals.
Oh yeah, that is actually a pretty good sized theme in the movie, I would say.
It is, and we probably should have notated this at the beginning of the episode, but there is naturally going to be some spoilers.
Oh yeah, of course.
In this, obviously, because we're talking about some details of the film. So
right.
If you were expecting to get a review and a rating without any spoilers, we apologize. But anyways, back to our scheduled programming. The violence against the animals. So in Wicked, animals are characters. They are, they talk and they
they're
have
personified.
Jobs. Personified is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And there is kind of going back again to the whole people being treated because they are different. Mm-hmm. Animals in the land of Oz are going through a time of being oppressed and prejudice against them, and they are being turned into more of animals in our world where they are in cages and on leashes and they don't talk and they don't have jobs, all that kind of stuff. And so there are, you kind of throughout the film see a progression of that. And, it's not just, oh my gosh, there's a goat in a cage. It's because the goat is being personified as a person with thought and feelings and rights and stuff that's all being stripped away from them. So that's kind of, it's not like animals being whipped or, beaten or anything like that, but it's more so the treatment of them, because in this world, the animal is basically equal to what a human would be.
That is a big theme in the movie, actually. Mm-hmm. So,
I would say anything that falls under the violence category in this film is all very mild. Mm-hmm. There are a few scenes, especially towards the end of the film, where some action rises up, and they're escaping, and there's a little bit of fighting.
This is where Tim and I will differ, because I have a lower threshold, a lower tolerance for mild violence or just violence in general.
All I'm saying is it's not exactly a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah, but if Quentin Tarantino is your standard of violence, then anything's going to be mild compared to that. So.
Very true. Very true.
So I don't personally enjoy disturbing, or I would say that I would describe the monkeys getting their wings as disturbing. Like the monkey was clearly in pain. Elphaba even says that she's like the animal's in pain, and you see that, and it's just uncomfortable and it's disturbing. So if you have a sensitive child to things like that, especially to animals, I would definitely have that conversation or just fast forward through that part. And then you do see all the monkeys, get their wings, and then they proceed to be agitated by that. And that's what makes them kind of evil monkeys now. And now they're chasing Elphaba and Glinda through the halls of, the palace or whatever it is. And that part is actually pretty action packed. You have monkeys crashing through the windows. You have monkeys trying to reach for them and grab them. So that's also a little violent.
Yeah, that would definitely be the most
scary
action
at time.
Yeah, and it's when we say scary too, it's almost like jump scare. Like when she said they kind of crash through the windows, and it's kind of, it's not horror scary. It's just like boom, something loud just crashed through.
Yeah, it's not blood, but it is. Jump. Yeah, it's not blood and gore, but it is just kind of this oh my gosh, somebody's chasing me and I can't get away. Mm-hmm. And then that actually leads into the hot air balloon scene, there is some violence there, some fighting. I think there's some punches thrown. There's fire. There's, that feeling of being chased, that, that them just trying to escape, a lot of people trying to run after them, and they have to throw some punches.
I think it is worth noting, though, that in any of the fighting type scenes, there really is no blood. Mm-hmm. I don't think we don't see anybody die necessarily, right?
I don't think so.
It's not like anybody's being stabbed or shot or, anything like that. So it's kind of your baseline,
Yeah.
hero needs to escape type of violence.
Yeah.
But I do want to back up a little bit because you talked about the disturbing part, and so it's kind of switching. It's similar to the violence and gore, but it's not violence and gore. It's just it is a little. There are a few little things that, in our opinion, were a little disturbing. One being when they first get to the Emerald City to see the wizard. If you have seen the original Wizard of Oz, you would be familiar with this, but obviously they go in to see the wizard, and the wizard is this big animatronic head, and has the voice change and the smoke and, kind of moves around. And so they did the same thing and kind of reimagined it in a modern way. But, especially if you have real youngsters, that can be, I remember when I watched Wizard of Oz for the first time as a small child, that was a little bit, just.
That and the flying monkeys.
It kind of like, whoa, what is that type thing, so.
For sure, yeah. I think it's intimidating. It is a little bit scary. It could be a little bit haunting, at times, depending on how your kid absorbs that information. Obviously, you know your kid, and we don't, so you can make that judgment for your own children. But and then also, it kind of also in that same scene, which is all towards the end of the movie, by the way. There are some spells. There's some witchcraft. There's some chanting. That sort of thing. So that is also. Just something to notate as well.
Should we move into the positive themes?
Yeah, let's do it.
There are some great themes, and we've kind of already touched on this a little bit.
Yeah.
But of course, there's some great things that are being taught and portrayed in this film. Unlikely friendships was a good theme of how people can be friends even though they may look totally different, be from totally different backgrounds, and they can also have those different backgrounds to influence new growth within themselves.
Yeah. I love that part of the story, and I think it's so sweet. I think one of the things too is you see how much influence Glinda has at school, and you kind of see her evolve as a character to use her influence for good, which I also really love. So, and then the other thing with Elphaba is, you see this even in one of the final scenes. Elphaba is, again, spoiler alert, defying gravity for the first time and learning how to fly. And you see this part where she is looking into the mirror or like the side of the building that's reflective, and she sees herself as a child. And so it's just kind of symbolizing overcoming childhood trauma, overcoming hurt, and being able to use that for good. So let's maybe give a little personal review. How did you like this movie, just from a personal preference?
So I could probably go down a whole rabbit hole of personal critiques and all that kind of stuff. Overall, it was a really good film. Mm-hmm. It was well shot. Obviously, the acting and the singing was great.
So talented.
The production value, the costuming, the set design, whether real or CGI, it was all really well done. Personally, I mean, Wicked is not necessarily my cup of tea. I enjoyed the watch. I'm glad I watched it. I was entertained throughout it. Yeah. It's never going to be like my favorite film. I'm not going to give it 2 thumbs up. Just from a personal level, I can appreciate everything that it did, and I know why people like it. It's just I might defer to those terribly gory Quentin Tarantino movies that we alluded to earlier.
For sure.
But no, it is a really well done film. I get why people like it. It's just, it's not my perfect movie.
Right. I loved this movie. I don't know if it's my favorite movie I've ever seen, but I really did love this movie. I love how they just really honored the musical and really didn't change a lot of the music. And but I, at the same time, even though I've seen the story, and knew the story just from watching it on Broadway, it felt like something new to me. So I feel like that has to say something. I mean, they've done a really great job.
I do want to skip back just a hair. One thing that I wanted to mention, that is another theme of the film that I think could be a great conversation topic, especially if you have a little bit older of kids. And I think they even maybe said it at the very beginning of the movie. I think it's in the script, but they talk about, are people born wicked, or does society push them that way? Mm-hmm. I might be paraphrasing how they said it in the film, but that's kind of the idea. Is Elphaba, was she born this way ultimately, and then she just ended up falling into what was going to be her inevitable destiny, or were the people and experiences around her what kind of tipped her over the edge to become that way? So I think that's a really interesting conversation. I think that's probably a philosophical question that people have been asking for a long time. And so that could be a fun, especially if you, like I said, if you have older kids, a fun topic of discussion to bring up and see what their thoughts and their opinions are, and just kind of explore that little bit of philosophy. So thanks, Wicked, for bringing that up.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that personally. And like I said, and like Tim said, there's a lot of great conversation to be had from this movie. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on that, actually. If you end up having really great conversations with your kids after watching Wicked, leave us a comment, DM us, whatever way. We would love to know what your kids are saying about this movie. All right, let's end the podcast with our family-friendliness rating. We're going to do this as a 5-star rating. So we'll give it either a 1, 2, 3, or 4. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5-star rating based on its family friendliness. Do you feel like the PG that it was given by the association is accurate?
I do. Yeah, I think that was probably a good call. Mostly there is no language. There's no blood, that kind of thing.
There's really nothing sexual. I mean, there's some kissing.
There is, yeah, that is true. There are, it's kind of, I don't know if they're supposed to be high school or college age. It's not really clear. But they're definitely age of dating, and there is some dating aspects to it.
Right.
And I think we do get a couple characters kissing. It's not a passionate makeout. It's not, anything too crazy, but it is a normal depiction of a boyfriend-girlfriend type thing, I guess you could say.
For sure.
So yeah, I think the PG is great because, as I mentioned before, you may not want to plop your preschooler down, which would mean that would be like a G-rated film. So PG is, hey, kids can watch this, maybe leave the little ones out of it, but it's overall appropriately rated.
For sure. And then out of a 5-star rating, what would you give your pure entertainment rating for this movie?
You may disagree.
Go ahead.
I'll give it a 3.5.
Whoa. Okay. Why? We need to know.
Because
hot take.
It's like I said before, like it was a very well done film. It's just not my personal cup of tea.
Right.
So if I'm saying like 3 is just my baseline, like it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm pretty, when it comes to like my pure entertainment, I get stingy with my stars. I really do. I reserve. Very few films have a 5-star. And
I'm the exact opposite.
Very few films have a 5-star for me. 4 means it was really, really good. And so 3.5, I feel like it was more than just okay.
Okay.
We can do a whole other episode on Tim's view on his stars if you want.
I mean, I'm pretty free, pretty liberal with my stars. I'm going to give this a 5-star. Yeah. I really am. I was purely entertained. I wasn't looking at my phone. I wasn't looking to like, okay, when's this thing wrapping up? Like I thought everything was beautiful and well done. And no, it's not my favorite movie of all time, but it entertained me. It did the job.
And hey, you're entitled to that opinion.
And I'm going to stand by it.
All right. Caroline, how can people find us?
Yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in for the Family Movie Night podcast. This is our very first episode, so we appreciate your patience. We appreciate you just hanging in there while we figure this thing out. But you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on any sort of social media platform, usually at The Family Movie. I don't even know what our handle is. We will have correct. I don't even know what our handle is. Check the show notes.
The description. That's how new we are.
Check the show notes. I'm not sure what our handle is, but we are on. We're on Instagram.
We do have handles.
We're on TikTok. We're on YouTube.
And obviously, any other platform you can listen to a podcast from an audio perspective.
Absolutely. And we're happy to be there. Thanks for having us.
We're looking forward to this journey and being able to watch some good films and hopefully help you all create some good family memories in your own houses. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time, guys. Bye.